Happy Monday to you. This is Motivation Monday for June 29th, 2020. Back out in the garden this morning because there's so many lessons that we can learn from working in the garden. That's why we have one at the church building, the Bridgewood Community Garden. That's why I have one here at home. There's just so many things to think about, to process in our faith, in our walk as we work in the garden. This morning, I'm out trying to get ahead of these weeds. It's going to be an endless battle. They have really taken root again. I've worked a row back here behind me. I'm going to try and work a row every day to reclaim the garden, because we know that if these weeds are allowed to stay here, they'll take over and they'll choke out the life in these plants. You've got these black-eyed pea plants that have popped up here. Planting these, well, that's the easy part, right? Prepping the soil beforehand with the tiller, pretty easy. Planting the seed, the kids love to do it. But guess what? The hard work is taking care of the weeds that pop up. Getting down on your hands and your knees and working to remove these weeds. So let's apply some scripture. Mark 4, of course, is where I'm going. The parable of the sower, talking about the seed that was sowed and took root, but then the thorns, and we'll give ourselves a little leeway today and talk about the weeds that came and choked out this plant. Of course, some of these weeds, like this big dude here, they've got thorns, so it applies. We'll go with it. Jesus, in explaining that parable, talks about the three things that these weeds, these thorns, represent. One is the cares of this world. So as we're looking at this weed, we recognize that the cares of this world can choke out what's growing in me. The cares and concerns that we should turn over to God, but instead I allow them to take root in my life. We need to pull that weed out. You know, another thing that we're told that this means in Scripture is the deceitfulness of riches. When we're comfortable, when we have everything under control and we think that we've got it, the deceitfulness of riches will not allow the word to take root in our lives. We've got to get rid of that too, is what we're told in Mark 4. And then finally, the desires. Desires for other things. A very general statement. There's a lot of things that we can chase after in this life. A lot of things that we thought maybe we put behind us that can come back, and before we know it, they've taken root and they're choking out what's grown in us. We definitely need to be pulling that. You know, a couple of practical lessons talking about this garden. Just like I'm down here on my hands and knees pulling these weeds, one of the best places for us to pull the weeds in our spiritual life is on our hands and knees in prayer to God. Asking God to help us, asking God to take the hoe that He has, the garden hoe that He has, and knock those weeds out of our life. You know, another thing that we learn too, it's a whole lot easier to get this job done if there's some help. I'm happy to do it on my own, but if the kids come out and give me a hand, or some other folks come and give us a hand, or at the community garden, if several hands are working, we know that this job goes all the faster. So sometimes we need some help with getting rid of these weeds in our lives. The final thought, as soon as I finish this row, move on to the next and finish the garden, I guarantee you there'll be lots of weeds taking root right back here. It's a constant battle. We're constantly on guard, trying to put up things that will help prevent the weeds from growing back in our lives, but it is a constant struggle that we have to keep after. We have to keep pulling, we have to keep working and get rid of those weeds in our life. I hope that you are growing. I hope that you're pulling the weeds, and I hope that you have a great week spreading God's love to those who you have interaction with this week.